All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the delay. We were having a few minor issues with the internet as I changed locations now. I'm elsewhere now. It's good. But anyways, it's always great to see you guys. Today is kind of a special one, a little bit of a more open-ended chats episode. But my name is Felipe, Creative Director here at MakerBot. And today we'll be doing an open Q&A session for you guys. We have a few samples, that we've discussed in the past, from flexible to carbon fiber, some ideas around future materials, and also we'll be talking about a few questions that we received throughout these couple of weeks in either on the chats or through email. So yeah, it should be a fun one. Alejandra is on the back end also running the show in YouTube, so she'll also be able to see all of your questions coming up. If you have anything that we are missing out, please send them our way. And yeah, let's get started. I'll just go through. We've started collecting them in kind of like a document here, so I'll be reading through some of them, and I'm also going to be sharing my screen so you guys can see some of the features on MakerBot Print. But let's just do a quick warm-up with a few of these questions, shall we? All right, so how are the extruders physically different? I think that this refers to the episode that we had last week where we were showing you guys the new, the new labs extruders. So we have for Method, and this is for the Method platform, right? Let's start there. Overall, in MakerBot, we have, I would split it into three big sections, three big platforms. The Replicator series, that includes the Rep Plus and the Replicator Z18. Then we have the Sketch series, which is kind of our EDU specific section. And finally, we have the Method series, which is kind of like our sort of flagship high-end printers. We're like, the ones that we are the kind of pushing the envelope a little bit with. I'll just switch over, so kind of like here to MakerBot Print. I think it's a better background than just seeing my face. But in any case, specifically for Method, last week we were talking about the 6 extruders that we carry on Method, and I'll show you here on MakerBot Print how do those play. But essentially, each extruder is tied up to a different material, right? If you go to either our materials section, or if you go to our, which I should probably do that, and I'll do that in a second, right? But in this case, the Method has 2 extruder slots, right? So it has extruder slot number 1, extruder slot number 2. So by default, you're already starting with 2 different extruders. One is going to be a dedicated extruder for your material, and the second one is going to be your extruder for your support material. So if you think about, we've discussed it in the past, but if you think about some of the parts that require some sort of scaffolding to actually make them, to print them okay. So in this case, you could imagine a little bit, it's not that much, but a little bit of an overhang here on this gear hub element, which could use support, maybe, it depends on the settings. But in any case, if you were to use a support material, that's where the extruder number 2 comes in. Now, as I said, both Method, so regular Method and Method X, we have 2 versions of the Method, have 2 extruders, right? One for material and one for support. However, depending on the extruder that you have, for example, if I say I want to use model extruder 1, right? This extruder is going to only be able to be used with the tough material, nylon, PETG, and PLA. If I'm using extruder 1XA, then I'm able to use ABS, ASA, PC-ABS, PC-ABS-FR, and that's also true for the extruder slot number 2, so the support material extruders. We have 2 options for you to use, and in this case, I have support number 2 and support 2XA. The reason for that is because we have 2 types of support material. One that's water soluble, which is called PVA, and the second one that it's also soluble, but you do need to heat up the water and to add an additional component to the water to dissolve the material, which is called SR30. That actually comes directly from our partner company, Stratasys, right? But long story short, the idea behind the number of extruders is that we have extruders dedicated to each material or to each family of materials, right? So we have, like, let's call our basic polymers, which would be covered by the 1A extruder. That means tough, nylon, PETG, PLA. Then we have, well, I'll start with 1XA, which would be our advanced polymers, the ones that require higher temperatures and the ones that are actually printed on the Method X. That means ABS, ASA, PC ABS. This extruder will actually heat up a little bit more, but essentially it's a dedicated extruder for those materials. That's 2 extruders so far. Then we have extruder 1C, which was the one that we introduced when we launched our nylon carbon fiber and nylon 12 carbon fiber, right? So 1C, it's our composite extruders. That's going to be able to print with the composite materials. That's 3 extruders so far. Then we have the Labs extruder. Labs extruder, it's actually kind of our more flexible offering, which is the one that you can use if you want to expand a little bit of the reach of the materials that we have. So you can use third-party materials with the method. You just need to use the Labs extruder. The reason for that is that the Labs extruder allows you to just not compromise the entire printer, but just focus on the one extruder that will be actually supporting that material. So that's 4 extruders so far, and number 5 and number 6 would be our support extruder. So one support extruder, which is called support 2A, that's for our PVA material. And the final one, the 6th extruder, is going to be our 2XA extruder, which works with SR30. So that covers kind of the range of the extruders. They are physically different. Some of the difference between them are changes in the gears, changes in the detection switches. That's because some of the materials, if you think about the nylon carbon fiber, can be more abrasive. So we actually updated the hardware to be able to support some of the specific materials. On the Labs extruder, for example, it's not only that we've hardened the gears within the extruder, but also we've enabled you to change the extruder, right? So that you can open that extruder, change the nozzle, swap it over, and get back to business. New question. Can you help me with buying my my first 3D printer? Okay, for sure. Probably that wouldn't be me, but if you send us an email at hello@MakerBot, and by the way, there is right now, our holiday promo is running. So if you go right now to our website, and actually, let me do that right now so that you guys can see what the promo is, because that's a really good question. It's a great time. I mean, throughout the year, we've had quite a few good promos, and we've been able to lower somewhat the price of the method. I'm just bringing in my internet window real quick. But yeah, if you're considering actually having, sorry, I cannot double do 2 tasks at once. But if you're considering a method, now is a great time to actually get it. Here we go. All right. Here, perfect. So if you go to our homepage, makerbot.com, you'll see it right on the top, right? Our banner, our holiday banner. It's a pretty damn good deal because you get free Labs extruder and also 30% on the method. That's applying for both the regular method and the Method X. So I would really encourage you guys to go and check them out if you're interested. You can either do that, you can request a quote here on the site as well, or send us a note at hello@MakerBot. But definitely, if you're considering getting the method, now it's a great time to get it. I'll just go through the method page real quick. But the price is starting now at less than $3,500, which for that machine, I mean, you're getting a lot of different things, right? So just to do a quick recap of what the Method and Method X can do. Loading the materials here, but overall with Method you'll be able to print, as I said, with kind of our more basic polymers. So that's including carbon fiber, by the way, but carbon fiber, TOF, PLA, PETG, nylon, PVA, that's our soluble support. And with Method X you get access to our full suite of materials, and also with Labs. Labs, by the way, it's also compatible with both Method and Method X, right? So the difference being, if you buy the Labs for the regular method, since the heated chamber won't be able to get as hot as you might need it, you might not be able to use some of the high temperature polymers such as ABS and you won't be able to. I mean, it's just not going to stick to the build plate with a regular method. You still need the Method X to get all of the materials. The reason being, the Method X gets way hotter. It goes to 110 degrees Celsius in the chamber, whereas the Method stays at 60 degrees as a kind of the maximum. Let's go back to the next question. That was a question on how do you buy it. Why don't you enable double color printing? That's a fun one, and then, you know, we get that a lot. You know, what's the double color printing? You know, sometimes we see that in different EDU printers. In this case, we do have dual material printing with the method, but the dual materials are more dedicated. Like I have a good example in some of these photos right here. So if you see these ski goggles, right? You see how the frame is printed in white, and then the second material, this sort of yellowish milky material, that's a PVA extruder. So instead of printing with two colors, right, kind of like to highlight an element or something like that, what we are doing is printing with two extruders, but dedicating one extruder for the supports that you will need, the scaffolding of sorts, right, that you will need in order to make the printer work, which I think it's kind of a, you know, more valuable right off the bat feature, but that's kind of the reason. We wanted to first focus on solving for printability, and then, you know, the post-processing element of it, painting and such, I think comes as a secondary option for us. How do you all make such good printers? I am, you know, 100% serious. I didn't plan that, but I think it's, you know, we've dedicated a long time in developing the method. I think that when I first started at MakerBot about 4 years ago, a little bit over 4 years ago, we were still developing the method, and it took well over 3-4 years for us to get, you know, to reach that level and be able to actually offer a printer that delivers on those promises. So it's just a matter of, there's a lot of hours dedicated on the printer, whether it be, you know, testing the printer, making sure that the system works, making sure that the materials actually are compatible with the printer, and then we get the appropriate results. How do you know if nylon carbon fiber is wet? Okay, overall, I'll repeat that question. How do you know if nylon carbon fiber is wet? And this is a really good question because, and I have my nylon carbon fiber gripper here. You know, there's two versions of the carbon fiber, right? There's nylon carbon fiber, just like that, which stands for nylon 6 carbon fiber, and we also have our nylon 12 carbon fiber, which was introduced later. Overall, for any materials, if you're seeing stringing on the part, if you're seeing sort of bubbling or hearing some popping sounds, that's kind of a good indicator that your material is actually too wet. Now, the method, by the way, also has sensors in the material base. So we have a material bay for each printer that encloses the material, and within those drawer bays there's a humidity sensor that gets triggered in case it detects high levels of humidity in your material. So, you know, there's the automated system that can give you a warning if it sees too much humidity in your material. There's also kind of like that visible, those visible clues, such as kind of a lot of little strings. It looks kind of like a spider web of sorts in every single layer. It looks sometimes also like a fuzzy part, you know, like kind of all surrounded by a little fuzz of material. That's the easiest way to know if your part, or actually if your material is too wet. Let's see. Next question over here. How often should you calibrate your MakerBot method? That's a great question. So for example, my printer, I've had it for, you know, I got it when we first started working remotely, so back in March. And I've calibrated it every time that I changed extruders, right? So if I'm using a different material, I'm going to use a different extruder. As I said, you know, it's not the same to print carbon fiber as it is to print SEPs, are the flexible material. Let me jump back here to my main view. So, you know, as you can imagine, like the SEPs material, which is flexible, is going to require a different type of settings and a different type of extruder than the carbon fiber. Every time that you change your parts, right, your extruders, it's highly recommended, and actually the printer will encourage you and ask you to recalibrate the extruders. Now, if you're not changing extruders, if you're not changing the materials, I would say a good rule of thumb is probably like every 10, 20 prints. And, you know, that means probably every 200 hours, maybe. It's really hard for the printer to get decalibrated because of the way that it's built. However, if you happen to move the printer, that's another good reason for you to run the calibration again, even if you haven't done more than 10 prints. So if you move the printer from location, you put it in one corner of the office, one corner of your place, then and move it elsewhere. It's really important to recalibrate, because all of that motion, the jittering, can definitely mess up a little bit with the calibration of the extruders. Is there some way to upgrade my Z18 to use new extruders? Not right now, and I'll go to the Z18 page real quick. So the Z18 right now offers technically 3 extruders, right? It has the Smart Extruder Plus, it has the Tough Extruder, and it also has the Experimental Extruder, which is not the same as the Labs Extruder, right? But you cannot use the Method extruders with the Z18, sadly. So it's the Z18 has been around for the better part of, I want to say like 7 years or more, which made it not compatible anymore with the new extruders that we introduced for Method. So yeah, the straight answer is you can only use the extruders that are meant for the Replicator series. So those would be Smart Extruder Plus, Tough Extruder, and Experimental Extruder. New question. Can you address the thermal conductivity of the nylon carbon fiber 3D printed material and its suitability for higher temperature applications? Okay, so funny experiment I remember back in high school. Let me just make sure that I'm sharing up. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to show. So I thought that you guys were still on my screen. So this is just a quick recap of the Z18 page. So if you go 3D printers, C18, that's a Smart Extruder Plus that comes with the C18. And as I said, there's 3 versions of that, but none of them are actually the ones that are that we've recently introduced for the Method platform. Okay, coming back to nylon carbon fiber and Method. Just 1 second. It's kind of hard to run the show and also talk at the same time. But conductivity of the carbon fiber. So carbon fiber, well, carbon itself can be conductive. In the case of carbon fiber, it has a little bit of a higher conductivity than your regular sort of standard polymers like PLA or even higher temperature like ABS. I wouldn't necessarily call it a conductive material. There's some materials that are, some materials, I'll just say that are definitely conductive and are better suited for such applications. Overall, carbon fiber, as you say, it's better suited for high temperature applications or high strength applications, right? So things that will require a little bit of a stronger, stiffer part, definitely a great application for carbon fiber. It's also great for higher temperature. If you go to the site here, we have, here we go, the specs for the heat deflection temperature for both nylon 6 and nylon 12. So with nylon 6, our standard nylon carbon fiber, it's the heat deflection is a little bit higher. It's at 184 degrees Celsius. And for the carbon 12, it's a little bit lower. Now, the big caveat that we've been telling everybody here from the beginning is that the nylon 6, even though it does have the spec itself, right, has a higher heat deflection temperature, it's very sensitive to humidity, right? And even after being printed. The good thing about the nylon 12 carbon fiber is that you completely, well, not completely, but you do diminish quite a lot the sensitivity to humidity, but you lose a little bit of that heat deflection temperature. So it's, it's not going to be able to withstand such a strong temperature as the nylon 6, provided that the nylon 6 is kept, dry and free of moisture. What is the difference between the Method X and the Method X carbon fiber, aside from the heated chamber being able to go from 110 from 60 on the Method X? Right. So the Method X and the Method X carbon fiber edition, it essentially is, the printer itself is the same. The difference is that the Method carbon fiber edition comes with everything that you need to print carbon fiber from the get-go, right? So you would be getting an additional 1C extruder, right? I think it's stated here on the page. I'm not sure if actually we have the extruder. We should put the extruder here. But the point is, with the carbon fiber edition, if you're getting the Method X, then you're also getting the 1C extruder, so an additional extruder that's dedicated for carbon fiber. If you just get the regular method, you would be getting extruder, the regular method X. You would be getting extruder 1XA and extruder 2XA, which will support their high temperature materials and our SR30 material. But you would need to buy additionally the 1C extruder that's compatible with the carbon fiber. So the difference is in the edition is that you get that additional extruder that gets you ready to go from the minute you open the box to print carbon fiber. That's the biggest difference of them all. But the printer itself, the chamber temperature, the settings, they are the same. Even if you got a Method X before we announced the Method X carbon fiber edition and you bought the 1C extruder, you're effectively creating your own Method X carbon fiber edition. How many times can we use the build tape on the Method X before needing to change it? That's a good question. And I will say, so far, I would go back to my printer. I've changed it just once in the past 8 months. And you'll see the signs of wear. You can see either bubbling on the build tape. You can see scratches because of the way that, when you remove the parts, if you're not, with time, you'll start to damage the build tape. So I would say, there's no specific rule of thumb of how many times. It's more a matter of you keeping an eye on the build tape. If you see scratches, if you see it starting to peel off, definitely change it. And keep in mind that some of the high temperature materials, such as the polycarbonates, will require or will damage more easily the build tape because they just stick so well to it that they just peel it off when you remove them, right? Is there a specific browser that MakerBot Cloud works on? Can it be used on iPads and Chromebooks? Actually, yes. I don't know about iPads, but Chromebooks for sure. And there's no specific browser. I've been using it in Chrome. I've been using it in my phone. I have a Pixel phone, and it works, well, an Android phone, right, a Pixel phone. It works perfectly well. So that's one of the cool things about, one of the cool things about the MakerBot Cloud, and I'll show you guys the cloud window here. So if you go to cloudprint.makerbot.com or makerbot.com/cloud, you'll be asked to log in. But yeah, you can essentially access the service. And even if you don't have a printer, you can access the service. And it's supported by most browsers. I have used it in Chrome, I have used it in Firefox, I have used it on the phone, I have used it on a Chromebook, and it works perfectly fine. So I think with that, I'll start wrapping things up unless you guys have any additional questions. But as always, it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Really excited to keep these conversations running. We have a few announcements still, believe it or not, even though the year is coming to an end, finally, I guess. But we have a few very exciting announcements coming your way. Some of them, might be, good stuff coming before the year ends. But do check out the promos. The promos are pretty good, a pretty good opportunity for you guys to get a hold of the method. And as always, let me know if you have any more questions at hello@makerbot.com or Felipe, that's FELIPE @makerbot.com. And I think for now, there's a couple of, one last question. Is the carbon fiber continuous strand or chopped? It is chopped. Good technical question. But yeah, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys as always for joining us, and let us know, reach out with comments, questions, suggestions, things that you might want to hear more about in upcoming episodes. With that, I thank you so much, and we'll talk next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.